All right, what's up? Welcome to the Sharp Mind Show, episode 90. I'm Nate, the Fit Future MD, your host. Be sure to shop at Intercell.com and pick you up a cool, inspirational t shirt today. We love and appreciate your support. So thank you so much for that. All right, so little housekeeping, if you would, to start off the episode. So, with the birth of my child impending, uh, or birth of my second child impending, this show will be one episode a week um, for the rest of the year. We got 90 episodes in, right? So we're doing amazing, but we're going to do one episode a week from now on. And hopefully you are enjoying that. So that'll be dropping on Mondays. They'll drop live Mondays. It'll be 7 topics instead of 4 topics, right? So hopefully you'll enjoy that a little bit longer. So to make it a little bit longer of a video, but it will, only be one episode a week. All right. So with that said, we're going to move into the first topic, and it's a heartbreaker. But Panthers lose again to the Saints. Rookie quarterback Tyler Show, 272 yards and a touchdown and a game-winning drive against the Panthers. Saints basically did it on defense, only giving up 17 points, right? They shut down rookie McMillan, left him with 2 receptions. Um, the Panthers did okay on the ground, 31 carries, 127 yards, 16 to Dowdle. So, the Saints basically kept that in check, but we still got 100 yards. And honestly, Bryce spread the ball around, so it wasn't like he was just, locked on one guy. And, he found the open receiver and, took what the defense gave him. But the Saints defense held up in the end, and the rookie was able to get a Olave going at the end so that the Saints could win. All right. What does this mean for the Saints? Absolutely nothing. They are in basically they're actually going to beat everybody in the division. Apparently, they have the best record in the actual division play. But um, for the Panthers now to be head of the NFC South at the end, they got to beat the Bucks twice, right? So, and then they got a win against the Seattle Seahawks in between that, right? And so that's going to be a tough order for the Carolina Panthers, in my opinion. Um, so, but we're going to keep pounding. We got 2 great running backs, good offensive line. Defense looks great. Like I say, they gave up 20 points, basically kept the team in it the whole game. But the Panthers are kind of just playing towards their people, right? Towards call it playing down to your competition. The Panthers are playing down to their competition, right? So hopefully, as we play a better team, we'll play better, right? And but we're gonna have to win out now to win this division. So let me know what you guys think about the Carolina Panthers down below. Do they have what it takes to beat the Bucks twice, or is it? Are we just overachieving this season um, based on the personnel that we got? Right. All right. Course number 2, we got to talk about money. And so SpaceX is rumored to be IPOing in 2026. And what is an IPO? IPO is an initial public offering. So that's the first time a company offers shares of their stocks to the public, right? And so what's behind the SpaceX $1.5 trillion valuation? And is it worth it for that IPO in 2026, right? So everybody kind of thinks of SpaceX as this must be dependent on NASA contracts, but in reality, SpaceX now is independent of NASA, right? They don't actually need NASA's funding to be profitable, right? And they've done that with basically internet satellites all over the world. And so they can provide internet services to areas that once, could not get internet services, right? And so I think people are seeing a bigger picture here with SpaceX. Obviously, they're in a blue ocean, um, along with there's other space companies kind of competing in the same area, but they're basically the first ones, right? They're in the blue ocean, so they have a little bit of a competitive advantage when it comes to that. They have reusable rockets, and you know the biggest thing is that now SpaceX is going to be putting uh, basically AI chips in their satellites. The new ones that go up, I guess, and they're going to obviously be doing so other AI stuff has problem. They're basically making data centers in space, right? But they're using their individual satellite as a computer chip, right? So instead of it being you got to have all this water to cool off the AI, you're sitting in space where it's already cold. Instead of having to go to your local municipality and say, okay, I need this much electric, this much water, yada yada yada. This thing is sitting in space using a solar panel to power itself, right? So people basically believe that not only are they first out there, but they're going to have a competitive advantage against other people doing AI centers on the ground, right? And so um, this kind of goes back to Tesla's MO, right? Because basically, what does Tesla do? Tesla gives you these big, huge ideas like, oh, we're going to have autonomous driving, like the car's just going to be able to drive itself. Well, they came up with that idea back in 2012, and now in 2025, they finally have come out and said, they are able to drive themselves, right? Pretty much. So, 13 years later, right? So you're basically looking at a long-term vision for SpaceX here. So if the IPO is at 1.5 trillion, you're thinking in 10 years this thing's going to be a $10 trillion company, right? Um, and that's kind of how I feel about Tesla as well, right? So if they're doing buses and they're doing taxis, you know, um, if you buy a Tesla and it can go be a taxi and you can make money off of it, I can see where people would do that, right? So then you kind of just have like a full network. Um, but that's basically what you're buying SpaceX for. Now, what are the negatives? Obviously, the negatives when you're building something out, you're burning through cash, right? So so if they're making $30 billion, they're probably spending 40, right? I don't know this for a fact. I haven't seen, or no one has seen because it's a private company now, right? What their actual numbers actually will be, right? You can on the prospectus, right, is what it's called. So nobody's actually seen what their numbers are actually going to be once they're IPO'd. But theoretically, they would be spending more money than they're making, right, to expand the company. So, but they do have revenue that is outside of uh, NASA, which is great. But let me know what you guys think of SpaceX. Is it worth the $1.5 trillion IPO with the idea that it's going to put its AI data center in space and fulfill its power needs using solar panels in the sun? Um, Obviously, I think that's going to give them a competitive advantage, in my opinion. I usually don't invest in IPOs off the start. I usually wait. But in this case, with them being such a blue ocean company, it might be a, sky's to the limit type deal here. Um, But if they IPO in 2026, maybe the economy will be a little low and we'll be able to get it for a little bit cheaper than we think. Not sure, but you know, obviously, SpaceX is something that is going to be important in the future, right? Let's say, and you have any thought about landing on the moon, mining on the moon, all kinds of stuff that they could start doing. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the IPO. Let me know what you think about SpaceX and SpaceX IPO. All right. So we'll move on to financial questions today. And it says, how do couples combine finances without constantly arguing? Well, what most couples do is they let one person handle the finances and the other person has no idea about it, right? But that's obviously not the best way to do it because, then you find out that one person's hiding something or doing something they shouldn't be doing, or, stuff like that, or you let your partner be addicted to gambling, or, whatever. Then some people just keep their stuff separate so they don't argue about it. But the simple fact is, to not argue about something is to have a goal together, right? And so, you know, to me, the best goal is to be financially free, right? To say, okay, I'm in a job I hate, or you in a job you love, either one. But at the end of the day, if you get hurt, you get injured, anything of that nature, that company is going to drop you, and you are not going to be cared for at all, right? And so, like, yes, the system does have Medicaid and Medicare for the elderly, and for when your bills get too high for you to be able to pay them. But you don't want to be that person that has to depend on that, because it is very much known that there is a quality of care issue when it comes to government issued care, right? So, but that's beside the point on that. But it's basically to have the way you don't fight about finances is to have the same goal, right? So if your goal, when you first get together, say at two people coming out of college, they're both going to have student loans. Your first goal may be to invest a little bit, so invest 1 or 2%, and then put most of your money towards paying off your student loans, or saving for a home, that type of thing. Um, but you basically have those goals together, right? So, and then you do what's called an all-in budget, right? Or I call it a threshold budget, right? So you take what you need to do your goals off the top, right? So my investing pile already went to the brokerage account. Uh, we already paid off, paid the bills of all the bills have already been paid, and the student loans have been paid extra. And then we got this much left, and we can spend that on whatever we want to spend it on, right? So even if you split it 50-50 and say, okay, you can spend this much, you can spend this much. Okay, cool. And then that pretty much keeps the argument away, right? Another thing that I do for my wife, and honestly, my wife does for me in her way, but the longer she is with me, the richer she gets, because I purchase her stocks for every holiday and every birthday and every anniversary. She gets uh, shares of companies that pay her a dividend, right? So every year that she is with me, she gets richer, right? So if one day she decides she doesn't love me, she's going to have $1 million sitting in an account, and she can just go do whatever she wants to do, right? And so, and for me, it always gives me peace of mind that, okay, she's still here, she still loves me, right? So, um, that being said, that's how you keep from that's how you keep from fighting with finances. If you need help setting up your finances so you don't fight with your spouse, make sure you hit me up for life coaching. Hit me up in the DM. We'll talk about it. We'll get you set up straight, right? And you want to just go ahead and sign up for life coaching, you can do that in the description below as well. All right, on to the next financial question. Is it better to lease, finance or buy a car. All right, so I am a proponent of buying a car outright with cash, right? Always been a proponent of that. I would rather uh, have to ride a bike than to have a car loan, right? So that being said, that's going to make you change, especially your first job, right? Your first job, so your first job as a kid is basically going to be one where you're within walking distance, right? Or biking distance to that job, right? So that might change your perspective. You might be at the Kmart down the street. For me, in my case, you might be at the gas station down the street. You might be at the McDonald's down the street as your first job, so that you can save up and purchase a car cash, right? Um, but to me, that's always better. It's the best case scenario to purchase a car cash. Now, that being said, um, I am from the South, and I do realize that people drive a long way to go make more money in cities, right? So you may be living, in Johnston County, 45 minutes away from work in Raleigh. You're going to be investing money into vehicles to be able to do that, right? But I still believe it's better to drive a bigger car to work than to purchase a brand new car, right? Especially the way the roads are in North Carolina. The roads are terrible. You can beat up a new car just as easy as you can beat up an old one. Um, but so between leasing and financing, all right. So if you have a business, it may be better to lease a car of a certain size so that you can actually not have to pay taxes on revenue that you have, right? So if you're going to have a car anyway in that business, it may be better to have a lease so you can write off the lease, right? But I still believe that, if you take a big chunk of money, it's still better than, so if you take, so you have 100,000 of revenue and you take 10 grand and buy a truck that gives you more revenue, allows you to have another worker. Obviously, I think that's better than leasing a $70,000 truck that would do the same thing. Right. So just my opinion on it. Let me know what you think. Obviously, in a world like it's in this world, it's basically like people just expect to have a car payment, expect to have high insurance bills on the car. You're talking about $700 car payment, $300 a month. Insurance, that's $1,000 a month, and that's why people feel broke, right? So keep that in mind. You know, right now it's about to be 2026, so you're looking at 2021 models, 5 years old, and see if you can buy those cash between 2019 and 2021, and see if you can buy those cash for less than $15,000. And that's money that you've saved up to purchase the cars. All right. But let me know what you guys think. How would you be purchasing a vehicle today if it's your choice to buy a vehicle today? All right. The next financial question says how to plan for retirement if I'm starting late, right? So I assume by late, hopefully they mean like 55. Honestly, if they mean 62, that's going to be a little bit different. But I would treat it the same way as I'm going to financial freedom, right? Number one, we have to learn how to invest, right? And so some people learn faster than others. Even as fast as I learned, it still took me a while. And I still sometimes miss the mark, right? On investing. So keep that in mind. But when you start retirement late, say you got 10 years to retire or less, 5 years to retire, you're going to be doing things a little bit differently than um, you would if you didn't, right? So um, some people might be claiming bankruptcy to try to to retirement because, like I say, if you're sitting there and you got, $40 or $50,000 in credit card bills, and you're sitting there with personal loans and all this other debt, like you don't have time to pay off the debt anymore, right? So, um, that might be an option for you, but basically, this is what I would do, right? So, still, we're gonna have, instead of 15%, we're going to be investing 25 to 35% of what we make, right? And so that's going to mean sacrificing for a little while, right? But I'm also going to take, instead of 5% with the extra, what are we doing with the extra money, right? So 15% is still the standard, you know, um, investment strategy, right? The normal investment strategy, you invest in the S&P 500 and, to get your 10%, yada, yada, yada. But that extra 10%, we're having to take big risks with that because we have to make up for lost time, right? And so this is just what I would do if I was already old and going for financial freedom. Is I would be taking that 10% and I would be fine, looking for, I'd be giving myself more chances, right? So, um, so let's see, let's do some math here. So say you make 60K, 10% of 60K would be $6,000. So I'd be taking $1,000 and putting it in 6 different companies that I think could be the next Tesla, the next Netflix, the next whatever the next thing could be, right? Um, the next Shopify, uh, that type of thing, right? So, um, and I'm looking to take that $1,000 and make it 100,000, right? And I'm hoping to do that 6 of 6 times, right? But if I do it once a year for 5 years, that's $500,000, right? But I'm giving myself 6 chances now because I'm doing 10% instead of the normal 5% that I do as a younger person, right? So I'm, instead of giving myself 3 chances, I'm giving myself 6 chances. I'm doubling my chances. And you know what? If you the big thing here is that if you lose the money, if you lose all 6 grand, all 5 years, right? Um, that 6 grand times 5 was going to be 30 grand. That 30 grand wasn't going to help you in retirement, right? It might have, helped you for 1 year of retirement, right? But that 30 grand becoming 3 million, that would actually help you in retirement, right? So this is what I would do if I'm starting late, right? Not financial advice, it's just what I would do. So basically your plan would change and you would take a little bit more risk to try to get a little bit more reward. Because either way, if you're in retirement late, you're screwed. You're either going to have to work longer, but you're still giving the 15%. So instead of working 10 years, you work to your 75 and you work 20, and now that 15% is worth $1 million and you live and you're okay until you die in your 80s or hundreds. But I would prefer not to work at 75. I would prefer to retire normally at 62. So if I'm 55, I'm taking my chances, and it's not a hope if you hit big. It's I learned how to invest, and I found these companies that were good companies that were going to be the next big thing, right? And so that's what I would do, right? It's not you're going to the casino and putting it on red. You're going to the casino and um, playing poker against an opponent, right? Instead of you know that type of thing. So, not financial advice, just what I would do. All right, and on to the quotes of the week. Um, and this one says, "Dreams are easy, discipline is rare." Right? Dreams are easy and discipline is rare. So, what does this mean to me? Right? So, you know, I'm a Sagittarius, right? And I have every day I'm thinking of new dreams, right? A new ideas, right? And the truth is that once you find a dream that's worth pursuing, the discipline it takes to get to the end of that dream is what really matters, right? So, like I've done 90 episodes now on this podcast, the Sharp Mind Show, 90 episodes, right? Um, to do 90 episodes, it takes a lot of discipline, right? I woke up for 69 straight days at 4 o'clock in the morning to do this show, right? So keep that in mind. That discipline is rare, right? And so it's easy to dream up a show. It's difficult to do the discipline to make it happen, right? That being said, uh, having discipline that amounts to nothing is kind of stupid too, right? So don't be doing disciplined stuff that doesn't help you, right? So there's people that are disciplined that in subjects that absolutely does not matter, right? It's not going to improve your life at all. It doesn't help you mentally, emotionally, physically, that type of thing, right? So keep that in mind. Dreams are easy to dream, but discipline is rare. So have the discipline to make your dreams a reality. If you need help doing that, make sure you hit me up for life coaching. Um, and this episode is brought to you by Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins, which is my wife's children's book. So if you made it this far, you made it 26 minutes. Hopefully, you know about Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins, written by Amazon best-selling author Meredith Dillon Johnson. If you got nieces, nephews, or children of your own, be sure to check out Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins. All right. So the last quote of the day, the last quote of the week is what you do today can improve all your tomorrows. What you do today can improve all your tomorrows, right? And so we were just talking about discipline, just talking about dreams. There's stuff that you can do in your habits, mindset, skill set, habits. That's what life is all about. Your mindset, your skill set, and your habits, right? Who you are is your discipline, your daily acts, right? What happens to you tomorrow is what you do today, right? So between what you put in your mouth, how much you slept, everything else, right? So what you do today can improve all of your tomorrows, right? So just like I was talking about earlier about investing, right? So me looking for 10 minutes a day, looking at companies, looking at stat sheets for 10 minutes a day, what I did that today may improve all my tomorrows, right? I may have found the next Tesla, I may have found the next Netflix, may have found the next Microsoft, right? So keep that in mind. And that's basically what all these companies are doing, right? They're going through all these, private companies and public companies, and they're saying, okay, I want to purchase this, so that I can add it to my company's portfolio and we can ride up on this company, that type of thing, right? So, but what you do today can improve all of your tomorrows, right? So let me know what you're going to do today to improve all your tomorrows. I'm Nate and I'm a life coach. If you're looking for life coaching, hit me up directly for life coaching. I would enjoy working with you. It's it's a yearly fee. And if I don't improve your life, you'll get the money back after that year if you've done certain things that I asked you to do. All right. Make sure you check out Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins, my wife's children's book. We really appreciate your support on that. Go to instacell.com, pick you up a cool inspirational t-shirt today. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.